friends, and welcome to my channel. In this video, we'll be talking about Fulbright Scholarship. I'm going to give you an overview, what's going in the ground, what is this scholarship about, and pretty much about the application procedure. So let's get started. In September 1945, a senator named William Fulbright introduced a bill in the US Congress. It was to fund for the exchange of students in the fields of education, culture, and science. 1 year later, President Harry Truman signed the Fulbright Act into the law. Down 74 years, we have this amazing exchange program running every year and benefiting hundreds and hundreds of students across the world. Now, to understand more, this exchange is actually a two-way system. We have US Fulbright scholars and then there are visiting scholars. So the US Fulbright scholars are students who are US citizens and they go to different parts of the world, to different countries to study and do research. Whereas the visiting scholar is someone from another nationality who comes to the US to study or research or professional training and so on. Now, within the visiting scholar program, there are different types of scholarships. For example, there is a degree program, there is a professional development program, and there is teachers training. I am going to focus on the Fulbright degree program, and by that I mean I'm going to focus on the scholarship that's given for master's and doctorate program. So to break it down further, for master's it's 1 to 2 years of scholarship, and for PhD it's up to 4 years, but it can go to 5 years, and this extension is kind of based case by case, so it's based on what is the situation after 4 years and why do you need to have an extension for another year. So that's the whole dynamics, but let's look at the point of contact. There are 51 Fulbright Commissions across the world, and there are other offices as well who work directly with the Department of State in the US, and that's your point of contact. That's the source where you go ahead and apply and they get to do the whole procedure. They stay with you throughout the procedure. They tell you about all the steps thereafter, and that's how you get going. I have shared a couple of links of different countries in my description, and then if you want to know more about a Fulbright Commission that is for you or you want to contact, you can contact me directly at Hadiqa at thebluecube.de, and I can find something for you regarding the contact there. The great part about this scholarship is that it's offered every year. The applications are accepted sometime around mid-Feb, and then their submission deadline is mid-May. And one thing is that for this year, 2020, they are extending it to June 15, 2020, which is due to the pandemic situation. But this is the time, make the most of it and apply. And trust me, this is the best opportunity you can get to study abroad. Now let's have a look at what's included in this grant. Because it's a full scholarship, all your tuition is covered for the whole program. So if it's master's, it's 2 years program, full tuition covered. If it's PhD, 4 years program, fully covered. Now, there are more benefits along with just paying the tuition. It covers airfare, one return ticket from your home country for the master's program, and one additional return ticket, making it 2 return tickets for the PhD program. Then you get a living stipend, which is your monthly allowance, and that really is for your rent. It's for your groceries or your transportation tickets and so on and so forth. This amount really varies from state to state. So if you have your university in California versus having your university in North Dakota, your stipend would be different, but it would be adequate for that state. So you don't have to really worry about it, or you're not really hand to mouth because of this stipend. Next is you get textbooks money, and that's really included within the stipend, but it comes twice a year. So 2 times a year you get a certain amount, around $200 to $500, and that's included in your stipend to buy the textbooks that you need for your coursework or any research work. Then comes the health insurance, which is really important, and Fulbright covers your health insurance. You can get up to 2 insurances, so you would have a primary insurance and a secondary insurance. But then again, it depends on the country that you're from and the kind of contract that's there between Fulbright and the country. Furthermore, you get one-time payments as well, and these are settling in allowance, which could include some deposits that you have to give at the time of moving into a new place or just settling in the US for the very first time. So this amount really helps you with that. Then they also give a certain amount, usually $1,000, which is really good, and that's to buy a machine for yourself, which could be a laptop, which could be a desktop. So that's there. Plus, they also give you a certain amount to go and present in national conferences. For master's program, they give 1, and for PhDs, you can apply up to 2 conferences. So that's really a big package. Now, moving on further about what is the applicant's eligibility. You have to be a citizen of the country you're applying from, and which is your home country, and then also you should be residing in that country at the time of application. This is very important. Then if you're applying for a master's degree, you need to have 16 years of education, and if you're applying for a PhD, you need to have 18 years of education. And it's desired that you have some work experience, some research work done, but it's not a mandatory thing. One thing that comes in the eligibility is that you are committed to return to your home country, and then you would be serving the country as well. So the idea is, because it's an exchange program, they want you to go to the US, learn, increase your learning curve, and then come back to your country and contribute there. Now, coming to the ineligibility. You are not eligible if you have a dual nationality, which means if your secondary citizenship is American, you cannot apply for Fulbright Scholarship. Or even if your spouse, your fiance, any of your parent is a US citizen, you're again ineligible for this scholarship. Furthermore, if you're an employee of Fulbright organization or if you're an employee of US Department of State, you are ineligible. It's also not valid for those who are already studying or already working in the US. Looking at the academic disciplines that you can apply for, basically, you can apply for anything. You can apply for all the disciplines, whatever it is. If you are studying arts or science or data science, agriculture, water resources, energy, public health, peace, security studies, anything. But one thing is that Fulbright is not for clinical medicine. Let's have a look at what the reviewer is actually looking for in the application. You have to submit an application form. You also have to submit your transcripts from high school till date, whichever is your latest one. There are test scores that you need to submit, and those are basically GRE scores. And if you are selected, they also ask for a TOEFL, which is an English language score. Other than that, there are 2 essays, personal statement and study objective, and these essays are having a lot of weightage in the application. So I have made a separate video on writing really good essays and the tips and tricks to that, and I'll share the link in the description below. Then the other thing is you need to submit letters of references, and these are the recommendation letters that come from either your professors or from your workplace. Make sure they're confidential. You need to have it from someone who already knows you, so your teacher, your final year supervisor, anyone, any head position from your job, whoever you were working under if you have been working. And from those 3 letters, I would recommend to have 2 from academia and 1 from your workplace. And make sure it's not someone who is related, who is your blood relation, but it should be someone, a professor or someone who knows you really well, so who can write about you well and who can refer you to an extent that it's strong enough. And Furthermore, there are bonus ways of making the application really well, and that includes if you have done internships, if you have done some sort of volunteer work, if you have some publications, some research work being done. You really need to incorporate all of that information in your application to make it a good one. Now, coming to some questions that are in the application. They ask about, one thing is the general information, your name, occupation, work experience, and so forth. Then you have to tell about major proposed field of study. And this is a question that you need to answer within 75 words, and it should be precise, but it should, like I said, give enough information to the other person who is reading it to know that what are you going to study using this scholarship. Then another question is for future plan, and that's again, the answer should be within 75 words, and you need to tell about your career plan, your near future benefit that you need to take from this scholarship. Then comes the education, and it's a whole table where you mention about all the degrees that you have received over the period. Then comes the question of membership in professional societies. That's again a good point. If you haven't done it yet, I would highly recommend to join a professional society or an organization that's relevant to your field and be a member and just be active within that society. Then there are questions about research, if you have done some research, and if you're a fresh graduate, you wouldn't really have a lot of research, but I would recommend that do mention your final year project, your senior year project. And then for those who are applying for doctorate, publication is not really a mandatory thing that's required in the application, but again, if you have it, it's a bonus. So mention about your master's research, mention about your undergrad research. If you have presented it somewhere, there's a separate section in the application for that. And if you have written an article on that, you mention about it. GRE score is a submission that you need to do before or at the time of application. They also ask questions about living abroad. If you have lived somewhere for more than a month, there is a section in the application that you need to mention the date, time, the country where you have been. I mentioned the 2 essays. Just to briefly tell you about it, study objective is, it really tells about what you want to study, why you want to study, and it kind of links your current status of education and your future plans with your proposed study that you need to do in the US. So you need to be specific, but you also need to tell enough. Then comes the personal statement, and that's really your story. So imagine your personal statement as your voice. You won't be there to talk about your life and how you have achieved everything and how have you reached this far. That essay, this personal statement will tell that. So you need to start from the very beginning, tell about your journey, your obstacles, your motivation, people who inspired you, and so on, and then reach till date where you mention about what you're currently doing, and then link it with the scholarship, how this scholarship is going to benefit you for whatever you want to do or achieve in your life. Now there's another section in the application, and it's called additional information. In this section, they usually ask you anything that's not already mentioned in the application before. So my idea is that you can copy paste or write down your CV or your resume. I have done that. I made my CV in that additional information section, and that really gives a whole gist of whatever has been missed out from the application, and you need to mention it to them. That's the block for that. Yes, so there's so much in the application, and the procedure is also lengthy. It's pretty lengthy. It takes a whole year, and that's why it starts a year before and the intake is a year after. But I have broken it down into 4 sections. The first step is the application review, which is the applications start mid-Feb and they go on till mid-May, which is around the submission deadline. But for this year, it's an exception, and the deadline is June 15th. That's when the applications are submitted, and after that, it gets reviewed. Second step is if you get shortlisted, then you get a call, and that's sometime around September. Then you go for the interview, you do your interview, and then you wait. Third step, if you get selected, then you get an email, and you are then in the process of university placement, and that includes the Fulbright working on your behalf to contact the universities in the US and submitting your profile there to look for admissions. And the final step is the visa interview. So once all of that is done, you go to the embassy, consulate that you have in your home country, and that's where you do your visa. But Fulbright is with you throughout this whole process. So they help you with the visa application, with the scholarship procedure, so basically everything. So you don't really have to worry about it. The only thing is it's lengthy, it's pretty expensive. So till March of the next year, you get to know where you're going, what's your university, and then a month or two before you would have your visa process aligned as well. So this was all about Fulbright Scholarship and how it actually works. If you have more questions, I can help you with that. Drop me an email or just contact me on my website, and I would love to answer your questions. Stay tuned for the next video if you want to know about the personal statement and a study objective writing about it.